I, um, I was born in Namibia, and there's a Namibian artist called Adolf Jensch who does watercolors. And I think he's a very, very important and great artist. He's German. He's died many years ago. In fact, I rate him very, very highly. And there was a person called Keith Welbor-Kerr, who was the British Consul General in Cape Town at the time, who liked his work as well. And I think I was 17 or 18, and I went and saw Keith. And Keith collected Piper. And I saw Pipers, and they immediately hit me. I don't know why, but there was something just quite special and immediate about it. And certainly not his writings. I wrote to Piper Care of the Tate Gallery when I think I was 19 or 20 when I could first travel overseas. And I didn't know who to write to, but I said, I liked your work. I saw them in this person. Could I come and visit you? And I got a really very warm handwritten note from him saying that he'd be very happy for me to come and visit him. So I think it was an emotional response, just something. I can't quite even remember which works there were, other than there were his watercolors, not dissimilar to the later works upstairs. And from then onwards, the friendship developed, and I did the book on his prints. It was touch and go whether I would do a book on his prints or his writings. But I did a book on his prints, and then even then after that, I wanted to do a book on Mfanwe's writings. I liked her a lot, and she said no. And so eventually I finished this book to really complete my appreciation of Piper. So the question was there any reaction to Piper at the retrospective of Picasso in the Tate in 1960? I don't know, other than that the 1972 article that I mentioned, that I don't know of any of that as a writing. I don't think he reviewed it. I'm not. Maybe he did review when the Tate bought their first Picasso, and there are some wonderful letters to the paper in which Piper absolutely criticizes the one, Dear Philistine, demanding an explanation when confronted with a beech tree and so on. So someone wrote about beauty and truth and so on. This is in 1933. But the only quote that I have was the 1972 one, which he says is always Picasso. He had, the other thing about Piper, which was very interesting, perhaps I should mention, is that in his home, he did have a Picasso, single Picasso of a figure. It was a print. But despite his tremendous knowledge of what he considered to be good art, it was never to feather his own nest. So he didn't say, oh, I think Francis Bacon is pretty good in 1940, or Lucian Freud, I better buy some, or something like that. I don't think it was a lack of money. It didn't interest him. He kept the two quite separate. But Picasso was absolutely the genius and the greatest living artist for him. And you see that throughout his writings from an early age. But nothing in particular of that exhibition that I know of. Okay, so his home was in Fawley Bottom, which is not too far from here. The cowshed studio was where he had his, so it was a cowshed which we had, and you came in through the double doors straight into the kitchen, where there was an Argus stove on the one side. He had hanging from the ceiling was a Calder mobile in the kitchen, and there were also fly traps next to it. On the right-hand side was a sort of a chest of drawers where he had a lot of his mugs. There was the Picasso. I don't think there were very many that I can think of. It was mainly his work, I think, that he had there. There was a sculptor, and I just can't remember his name. I don't recall seeing any Ben Nicholsons or any of the famous abstract artists. Other English artists, I don't know, I don't think so. He had also, in the cowshed studio, a whole series of records. So he had an immense library of records, long playing records, which he used to play. Other than the Calder, and the poster also was of the Death in Venice, which he'd done the designs of Sepp, and Mfanwe wrote the libretto for it. No, I'm not too sure of that. I certainly know that there was a tapestry that, in fact, I commissioned, which was done with the Namibian weavers. And again, with the tapestries, Piper didn't like reproduction. He said that he liked lively representation. So it wasn't an exact copy at all. And that was in his home and went to the Tate exhibition, the retrospective of it, which I think was 83, and he donated it to one of the colleges in Oxford. I'm not quite sure what happened with the estate and how it was divided. I certainly know all the books that he had were sold on auction through mags. So you have a record of all the books that he had collected and so on, which is quite a magnificent collection, he and Mafanwe. Mafanwe had her own room, which he wrote, and John had the studio. And there was also outside was where he did large-scale work, so stained glass. The stained glass designs were actually done to size as well. It was just the whole atmosphere of the place was informal and warm, really very informal and warm. And I certainly know with, when I was with Mafanwe, I would go there and try and be polite, and she'd say, well, would you like tea or coffee? And I'd say, well, either, I don't mind, sort of thing. And she'd get really, not irritated in a nasty way, but in a nice way, say, well, I'm asking you what you would like. Okay, sort of tell me what it is. And there were just small things like that, which is, they had their own garden in which they dug up vegetables for the garden. I remember Piper at an old age, digging up, I think, potatoes and saying it's good for him and so on. So they were just, no servants, nothing fancy. I think they've gone far, I think was the cottage. They used to go there very often. Mafanwe was Welsh. And I think when they went there at first, I never went there. It had a very beautiful view, I believe. I still think it's in the family. I don't think they've ever sold it. But he used to go and paint there. And there are stories of, I don't know if he told me, whatever it is, that he would have, because of the wind, he would take scraps of paper to do collages of things there. But there are some very nice works of gone far. And they kept it, I think, as a holiday, but as a working place as well. And they love to go there. And I think it had no running water, no running electricity for quite some time. It might have now. I don't think there are any works of gone far in the exhibition, but I'm not sure. No, they're not. But they're very, very lovely works of that area. Certainly there are a number of many works of Wales, and the very interesting works where he's done the rocks formation, which like bones, I think he said, on the human for him. Yes, he did quite a few mosaics. Quite a few. I can't say where they are, but he did quite a few. So there is that one, and there is also one in which, around a building which is still there, it's called now the Piper House in London, a private building. All around it, if you want, I can look it up and let you know. Not so many mosaics as stained glass. I think he may have done half a dozen mosaics. He did some mosaic tables, but I don't know where they are as well. I think that seems to be it.